Hi again. It's nice to see you. Welcome back. I hope that you had the possibility to learn from different PESs during the parallel sessions and got some new ideas for your own PES. And I got the information that all the pictures that have been made today are already uploaded to the WAPES application, so you can download them there. Now we will continue with different project overviews on the topic of bench learning. And for this, I'm happy to introduce you the moderator, Ms. Sandrine Portier, who is the Deputy Director of the International Relations Department in Pôle Emploi. So, Ms. Sandrine, the floor is yours to introduce the next session and the speakers. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup. Bonjour, bonjour à toutes et tous et bienvenue à cette table ronde, le dernier moment de cette journée. J'espère que
Good afternoon. It's been a long day and I hope that you are not too tired. I hope you can still focus and concentrate on what we do.
Et Michael de l'Allemagne parce qu'on m'a dit que vous aviez...
I thank Nils and Michael and the other moderators very much.
Modération et les tables rondes, alors j'ai aussi préparé...
They say that you've prepared a lot, that you've been thorough, and I tried to do the same. I didn't want to lag behind in any way. My name is Sandrine Portier, and I represent Pôle Emploi, the French PES. I'm very happy to participate here, and we are going to talk about self-evaluation. The Estonian
la valeur ajoutée, tous les apports que cette démarche peut apporter.
The head of the Estonian Unemployment Insurance Fund reminded us why bench learning is so important.
Olsen, qui est avec nous à distance. Hilde.
We have Hilde Olsen. Hilde W is sitting here on stage next to me, and Fumie Higashira is in Tallinn, but unfortunately had to be isolated and is participating remotely. And they will speak together with Mrs. Cheachanmolika. So we have 4 speeches. But before we start, we have Mr. Johannes Kopf, so the Director General of the PES Network Europe, and also the Austrian PES.
Good morning, colleagues. My name is Johannes Kopf. I'm Managing Director of the Austrian Public Employment Service and right now also Chair of our wonderful PES network, the Network of European Public Employment Services. First of all, I'd like to take the opportunity to really congratulate you for organizing such a big event in these, I would say, uncertain times. Although, unfortunately, I was not able to travel to your meeting, it's really a good feeling that these meetings are possible in person again after 2 years of, I have to say, long COVID. I'd like to take the opportunity to share some thoughts of bench learning with you, a topic I heard you are really working on and interested in. I was happy to hear that WAPES has developed its own methodology of self-assessment, of having a methodology of assessment, of comparing each other, of experiencing others and developing indicators. As being Managing Director of the Austrian Public Employment Services for more than 15 years, I had many opportunities to attend such assessments both on national level but also international level. We have already in the PES network of the European international level, we have already working within our, nearly finished our third cycle of assessments, which means that every European PES have been assessed already 3 times. That's always the same international teams of colleagues from other PES, often with a lot of experience in quality management, in other things, in addition with some researchers and so on, travel to different other countries and work hard on the assessment there. And it all leads to recommendation at the end. All in all, over the years, we gained a lot of experience. We worked hard on many recommendations. We organized mutual learning events. We organized assistant projects for different topics in different countries. We organized a lot of ad hoc discussions. Right now, the next discussion will be about the integration of the Ukrainian people into our labor markets and so on. And it's really a living system. But to start with, I really have to say that bench learning is also hard work. It needs resources, it needs staff, it needs time, it needs money. And it's not clear, it's nothing that erases by its own. It's hard, and bench learning also takes a time when developing to convince others to work on bench learning and to compare each other. Because of course it suddenly creates transparency, and not only about your strengths but also about your weaknesses. And this is at first not really something you really love to. But so it was also in the European Union. We started with 5 countries, then I remember we have been 8 and then 11 and so on. But more and more PES were convinced that this is a very good product, and in fact it's the best product we developed over the years within the PES network. It's a good product about, getting better together. This is something, that's the aim. And I would say, as I said, it's the best product the PES network has developed over the years. This has also helped us to become a strong player at an international, at a European level. A strong player with the willingness and also, with some need to be heard on a politic level. So it's really, we are a partner with the willing of giving expertise to the European social partners or the European politicians. But again, this did not develop by coincidence, but required and still requires lots of efforts, money and work, of course. In conclusion, let me share 2 thoughts with you. First, it's about finding the right balance between flexibility and consistency. As I really experienced, all our PES are very different. We have different mandates, we have different legislations, we have different resources, different settings, different culture, different transitions, and also different history. In many cases also different technological possibilities. I remember once I get to know the director of the PES in El Salvador, and we had a nice talk after a dinner. And within our talk, we experienced that there were so many differences in the task, in the resources, in everything between El Salvador and Austria. And it was great to hear from each other. And this is a very, very important point. It's about getting to know each other and understanding the differences. And these differences are the basis for the right balance between, I would say, consistent quality indicators and, on the other hand, flexibility in the indicators. Too much flexibility isn't good, because with too much flexibility you lose the possibility to compare each other. But too much, I would say, excellent standard is also not the right point. So you have to find the right balance between quality and flexibility, I would say. Meeting this balance is constant work, as I said already. Second, the success of bench learning is also the willingness to learn from the others. So the willingness to take the recommendation. It doesn't mean you should take every recommendation you get after a bench learning visit and implement it right after it. But it's the willingness to discuss the recommendation, to discuss the results of the indicators, not only within your organization, but also with your owners, with the politicians, with social partners. It depends who are the important stakeholders for you. And this is really a need to have the willingness to learn from the recommendation, to learn from others, and to discuss it also with colleagues from other PES. This is a great success to have the opportunity to discuss with people in different organizations but with the same task. That's a great thing. So these were my two thoughts, finding the right balance and also having the willingness to take up the recommendation and to do something with them. I wanted to share these two ideas, which I believe are essential for the success of bench learning. I'd really like to offer you the expertise of the PES network also for WAPES by developing a good benchmarking initiative. And so for your conference, I really like to wish you all the best. Thank you and goodbye from Vienna.
Un immense merci à Johannes Kopf pour cette intervention et ces messages.
Thank you very much.
Très inspirants, mais aussi très concrets.
To Johannes Kopf for his very inspiring and concrete speech. Now I pass the floor to Hilde Olsen, our first speaker here. She's a very important person in PES. In WAPES. No, sorry, in PES network. And she knows a lot about the European public employment services.
Nous devrions avoir sa vidéo dans quelques minutes ou secondes plutôt.
Good afternoon, all of you, and thank you for the invitation to come here today to present the approach for self-assessment, co-learning and cooperation from the European Network of Public Employment Services. Before I start presenting our approach, I will introduce you briefly to the network as such. The network of European Employment Services consists of the 27 EU member states as well as Iceland, Norway and Liechtenstein. The European Commission is also a member of the network. The bench learning approach consists of two parts. We have the benchmarking part and the mutual learning part. And the aim of this approach is to support the public employment services to improve their performance by comparing with peer PES and learning through a structured and systematic approach and institutional learning from peers. I will go further into the details now how we implement the bench learning model. This is a cyclical approach. We started up in 2014, and we have completed 2 cycles, and we are now in the last phase of the 3rd cycle. We have different steps, and the main step is maybe the first one, with the site visits of the 30 PES that I mentioned. This consists both of a qualitative and quantitative assessment. In addition, we have the evaluation of quantitative performance based on a set of key indicators that we have in our dashboard. Combined these 2 elements, we do some analysis to see if we can find indication about what works to improve performance. And this is an aim to help the public employment services in further reforms and development. And it also helps us in the network to define the activities that is helpful to support the learning across the public employment services in Europe. And this is then a step forward to the systematic learning process that I will explain a bit later in my presentation. Then I will explain a bit more in detail how we do the qualitative performance dimension. That is maybe the most interesting for most of you. The assessments are based on 8 performance sections that are important to describe the performance of public employment services. First, we have a strategic performance management. We also have a design of operational processes and use of information as a separate section. We have sustainable activation and management of transitions, relations to employers, evidence-based design and implementation of PES services, effective management of partnerships, allocation of PES resources, and as a new section added in the 3rd cycle, we have crisis management. Now a few words about the role of the assessors and how we do the qualitative assessment. The external assessment is done by a team of experienced peer PES colleagues. And the assessment has 2 main purposes. The first is to support the self-assessment, which is done by the institution in advance by giving external feedback. In this way, we mirror the self-assessment, and you can compare your own reflection of your institution with the feedback from the external colleagues. I will also here emphasize that the external assessor team provide an helping hand to the institution. And here I will indeed emphasize that this is not about control or an exam. It's help from your colleagues in other countries. It can also be useful to have a reflection of your organization done within the framework of a clear model as the excellence model, which is the basis for our bench learning model. The second purpose is to derive an assessment of the organizations which is comparable across the countries to establish a basis of experience to support further learning across the countries, and which is one of our main aims in the network. As all of you know, the public employment services across Europe is quite substantial. They differ when you come to size, to responsibilities, and also the institutional framework. But still we observe that there are very many common challenges across the countries. For example, service delivery. All PES experienced during the pandemic and afterwards that they have implemented new forms of services, they use new channels. This comes on top of increased digitalization, which we have experienced during many countries now. I will also mention the importance of building up a future-proof organization where risk management and resilience strategies can be very important to respond to crisis. Another topic that also is very typically common across countries is the need of more focus on efficiency, and as well implementation of modern leadership principle. This the public employment services share as a challenge with the other employers. As a last example, I will mention the need of enhanced collaboration with the stakeholders, also more and more important in a rapidly changing labor market. Then a few words about the mutual learning activities, also an important part of our complete bench learning approach. We have a broad road of learning formats. We have the more general activities as conferences, seminars, working groups, webinars. We have also more dedicated workshops to dig further into some concrete promising practices which can be of interest to share with colleagues in other countries. We also organize tailor-made activities targeted on individual public employment services or for a cluster of public employment services which have some common learning needs, where we organize what we call learning dialogues. So to sum up what I now briefly have explained, I'm sure that I have most of our member PES with me when I say that bench learning is actually one of the main drivers for PES reform across Europe. I will also stress that bench learning is absolutely not an event, but it's a mindset that needs to be developed and maintained. And as a last conclusion, a highlight from my side is that what counts, that it what works. And to know what works, we need evidence. And that's what bench learning is about. Thank you for your attention.
Merci beaucoup, Hilde. Alors qu'on le découvre ou qu'on le connaisse déjà,
Thank you, Hilde.
benchlearning impressionne.
Perhaps you already know the European bench learning model. By its structure, it's quite remarkable, but the working program is also quite remarkable because it allows for cooperation through various formats, dialogues, conferences, webinars, working groups, and so on and so forth. So it's
Et je me tourne donc vers
wide. It's very inspiring. And now I pass the floor to Hilde de Biol, who
haute responsabilité
joined WAPES 3 years ago. You worked
découvrir toute la bio.
previously in the Belgian PES.
Vous allez nous parler de SamPES.
You held some high-ranking positions there, and you will tell us about SamPES, so self-assessment method.
Please.
I thought Fumie was coming first, but okay.
Thank you.
So yes, we started with this project SamPES, the self-assessment method, and it was not an easy thing to do. But first of all, as an introduction, I want to say why we did it. Can you move the slides, please? So, what was the idea of SamPES? First of all, we had the long-term strategy of WAPES that was approved by the General Assembly in Marrakesh in April 2018. And that long-term strategy that includes a recommendation to establish a bench learning project. So SamPES, the self-assessment method for public employment services. The purpose of this SamPES was to encourage countries to work together with countries for self-reflection. And that's not an easy job because it is very easy to say, I'm very big and I'm very great and I'm very, but saying, yes, this is what I cannot do, as Mr. Kopf already said, that's not an easy process. So, but that is the intention of SamPES, making kind of SWOT analysis of yourself, your weaknesses and also your strengths. So then in 2019, we developed a method and we were ready to go for a pilot. We had some countries and it should start in March 2019, but then came COVID and that was a whole different thing because we were not prepared. We were prepared to do a kickoff physically, and we were prepared to do some things physically, and then suddenly we had to turn everything on a digital way. So in this pilot project, we managed then to switch to digital, and there were 7 countries that took part, and that took part in November 2020. So instead of March, it became November. Then in 2020, while we were doing this pilot project, we got a request from UMatch if we wanted to expand our project to the African region. So we were funded by GIZ, and we accepted, and in 2020 we did this bigger project with 16 countries. Next slide, please. So when we are talking of SamPES, there are of course some objectives that we had. So what did we want to do? That was getting an overview on assessment. We wanted to assess public employment services. We wanted to know about their performance, about their services, Like I said before, we wanted to do a kind of SWOT analysis. We wanted to know strengths, we want to know weaknesses. And of course, when you know that, then you want to see how are we able to support these things. So you have to plan change steps. Once you know these things, you have to plan change steps to improve the assessed areas. And one of the things we also wanted to do, but it's still, it is in progress, it's a lot of work in progress, that is to create a network, a worldwide network, where we can meet each other, where we can, once we have assessed ourselves, then you can meet with other countries, you can set up things with other countries, but it's a huge work. We took some large steps in this thing, but still it are baby steps. So a lot of things are yet to come, and it is really a work in progress that will not be finished in 1 year, not in 2 years, not in 3 years. I don't know when it will be finished. I think it is a work that will grow and grow, and I hope that it can grow and it can go further. First steps are taken.
Because assessment is not an end. It's
there is never an end.
Yeah.
Because I was thinking when I started with SamPES, okay, then I have a legacy. When I go, I have a legacy. Now I'm thinking I cannot go because this legacy will never stop. Bon. Can we go to the next slide, please? So about the self-assessment, what did we do? We had 7 topics. So after the first crisis of COVID, we changed it digital. We had these 7 topics and we made 7 modules of it digitally. So we have it online. And it was about strategic performance management, design of operational processes, job seeker services, relation with employers, evidence-based design and implementation of services, management of partnership and allocation of resources. That you can see a lot of similarity with the topics of the European networking. Of course, we talked with them too, and it are very, yes, I think those 7 cover a lot of things within PES. So what did we do then? Before we started to assess, can I have the next slide, please? Before we started to assess, we did an inquiry. We did a kind of questioning of the PES that were taking part in our SamPES project. Because we wanted not only to say, voila, online you can find these things, fill it in, fill it out and send it to us and then it's finished. That's not what it is all about. It is about getting to know each other, getting to know what are your needs, getting to know what are the challenges within your PES, because a PES in Africa is not the same as a PES in Peru or I don't know what. You need to get to know each other. That gives a lot of information. So we did really did some Zoom meetings, phone calls, really to get to know the needs and the challenges within PES. It was also important because I know in the European network they did all of their topics, an assessment of all the topics. We were thinking about 1 or 2 topics because it is not an easy job to do and we had to start somewhere. But when you want to take 1 or 2, you need to know which topics are the have the priority in PES. So we did this inquiry and then we saw that on top of it, it was the job seeker services and the relation with 2 employers. So that were the overall the main challenges that they put on top. So most of the countries that did the self-assessment only on job seeker services and relation to employers. Next slide, please. So out of this interview came a lot of remarkable things and not remarkable, you could imagine, but anyway, the top challenge is the skills mismatch, and that is something we know these days about skill mismatch. It is a challenge almost in every PES, unemployment, and also the informal sector, because those three that are the biggest challenges that we found out when we did the inquiry in the African countries, in the African region. Next slide, please. So I can talk for hours. I'm not going to do that. I don't think the audience would appreciate that. So I synthesized a little bit what we found out. So services to job seekers and employers, as I said before, that were the two most urgent challenges to identified by each participant. So most of them did only those two, but there were others. We did like 4 areas. Those two, and some of them did like management partnerships, and one also strategic performance. So the data of that they are not big enough to say we have big data of these things.
Mais vous avez volontairement souhaité ne pas traiter le sujet de la crise. Vous avez gardé 7 domaines,
Oui.
et non pas 8.
No.
So, in the end, you had 7 areas, not 8.
Because we were thinking of an 8, and it slips my mind now, but during that time we did not do it. Okay. No, it was a first thing, and all these 2 challenges were already so big. To do that, no. Like I said, it is still baby steps, work in progress.
Okay.
So I think it's very necessary that we, in the future, that we still will go on to cope with the most important challenges we saw in the interviews, like this skill mismatch and unemployment. But we already did something, a little thing. We made 2 videos about it. One about not unemployment, about informal market, which was also a big challenge. We made a video of that one, the informal market, and one about skill mismatch, but that are still baby steps. There is a lot to do. I think it's very important that we can tackle the challenges through peer review, to meetings, trainings, and on-spot, in-depth consultation. And then what I wrote there is also still in our mind, and work in progress to come, that is building really this worldwide network. And then at the last point, we had like 16 countries who did the assessment, and 14 of them made really an action plan. And that's also work in progress, because it has to be followed up. Next slide, please. So I resumed a little bit the lessons that we learned and general key challenges, and I think most of these challenges and lessons that I have written here are not only for the African countries, African PES. I think a lot of PES will recognize some of these, and it is that we need like more individually tailored services, because that will lead to more relevance, effectiveness, effectivity, efficiency, and sustainability. So you cannot make a one-fits-all thing. Before, in former times, people were searching for work and it was like one fits all. I think that doesn't work, so that's the first thing. I also think that every PES will be affected now and in the near future by the very complex changes in the labor market. We noticed that during these times, these 2 years of COVID, what we all had to conquer. So, but I think it will not stop after COVID. It will still be complex. So that's another thing, lesson that we learned out of all this. Yes, to tackle the skill mismatch, I think it's not only in Africa, it's a worldwide challenge. And a simple matching of labor supply with demand is not enough. I think we have to go away from the thought that we can match by degrees, university degree, normal little degree, I don't know which degrees. We really should think in terms of skills when we want to cope with this challenge of skill mismatch. So yes, creating or upgrading a digital service strategy, I think also that is very crucial for all PES to get more data, to get a better analysis of yeah, where to go to. I think this digital service, and we noticed this these 2 years what we did digital. Who would ever have thought that in 2 years we would be where we are now? We are writing history now because we are working hybrid now. That's the first time that we do this. So digital service strategy is crucial, I think. Next slide, please. Another thing we noticed, and that's perhaps not in every PES, but a lot of PES, there was a little bit a lack of credibility because they were not always considered, PES was not always considered as a high priority, and that has also to do with policies, with politics, and that gives them, when you lack credibility, it's not easy to do what you have to do. The main thing you have to do is mediation with job seekers, and often they didn't come to that job, and they had no time to have a lot of contact with employers. So yes, that was one of the things we learned too. And then another thing was the partnerships with other service providers that could prove to be an opportunity for a lot of things, for exploring alternative solutions. So yes, there is a lack of communications and relation with employers, and partnerships too. So partnerships, I think there is still a big challenge to be more in contact with other partners. And then the last thing is the digital tools. Like I said before, we are now living in a digital era, so we cannot live without digital tools anymore. But one big lesson I learned from all this, we started like we wanted to do something physical. We wanted to meet people, to get to know them. We did do our thing digital, but you can never replace the physical meeting. You miss the body language, you miss energy that is going around. When you're in a group, then one is very enthusiastic and the others get it too. You will never be able to replace totally the physical thing. So for me, and perhaps you think otherwise, but for me, I think in the future we should do both. We should have a world of PES with and physical and digital. For me, that's the ideal. But okay, that's my opinion. Next slide, please. So potential learning projects after this pilot, what could we still do? We were thinking about training modules, and as a fact, we have already planned a training on relationships with employers, and that will take place normally when there is not another wave of COVID and so on. Then it will take place in October this year. So that is already planned, but there should come more trainings, of course, but one by one. So already one planned in October 2022. We are also thinking about peer exchange, because that was one of the things we wanted to do in the beginning, and then we couldn't go on. That's also for the future. And as I told before, also we were also thinking about individual consultancy. Why individual consultancy? Because we have now like 14 action plans, but then you can say, okay, here is your action plan, goodbye, but it will not work like that. I think when you really want to do something, you need to go in depth with them to see for some practical solutions with their challenges, with their action plans, with the timeline, little steps, better little steps than big steps that they don't do. So really to make it operational. And for that, I think you really need this individual consultancy to go there to see, like with assessors, what they really have, what they need, what they can do, really practical things. And that is also what we missed. I'm not going to repeat why. Okay, next slide. So way ahead, yes, of course we will not stop with the project. At least I hope we will not stop. And we want really to identify PES who are interested. I put it here in joining the network. It is not there, but we want to make it. So we are really going to see and contact all PES to see who is interested in the network and who is interested in joining. We want to look into feasibility for producing training modules and consultancies, like I said before. We have already one in the future. The consultancies, I don't know yet. Of course, we want to follow up these action plans, because otherwise it would be lost. Then you have done something and it stops there, but it don't stop there. And of course, it is our wish to expand SamPES to other regions. That is one of our wishes too. I think we are finished here. Thank you very much.
Merci beaucoup Hilde pour cette présentation. On a là un bel
Thank you, Hilde, for this presentation.
d'apprentissage mutuel entre réseaux.
It is
Et WAPES, on voit aussi
exemplary presentation outlining how the PES network and WAPES can learn from each other. Definitely you are in for very interesting developments. Before we start exchange of views with the audience and answer the questions, we still have to listen to the presentation by Ms. Fumie Higashira and Coach Cheachanmolika. Fumie Higashira is a Japan ministry worker and is now the WAPES joint project coordinator. She will connect with us and Cheachanmolika represents the Cambodian National Employment Agency. So it's an Asia-centered presentation. I think it's exciting. And if I'm not mistaken, you are going to talk about the efficient delivery of services to users and also key performance indicators. Anyway, the floor is yours.
For introduction.
Suur tänu selle sissejuhatuse eest.
Okay, hello, my name is
Minu nimi on Fumie.
a joint project coordinator of the WAPES, being seconded from Japanese Ministry of Health, Labor and Welfare. I feel very honored to be here today in the World Congress of the WAPES, even remotely from Tallinn. And I'm sorry that I cannot speak in a really beautiful voice today. But I'm really glad to have an opportunity to do this presentation with our colleague Cheachanmolika, a deputy head of National Employment Agency, Cambodia. So compared to other two projects, some of you might not have heard about what is the joint project. So in the next slide, I would like to talk about the framework of the joint project, mainly who does the joint project for what. So the Japanese Ministry of Health, Labor and Welfare and the WAPES Executive Secretariat launched the Japan WAPES Joint Project in 2019. The joint project is based on the agreement between two organizations. Yes. And this aim of the joint project is the improvement in public employment services, particularly in the Asia-Pacific region. And Case, Vice President of Asia-Pacific region, have facilitated the communication among the WAPES members in the region. And the experts from India's Case and MHLW, those who have a high level of knowledge and rich experience in public employment services, advise the project coordinator and the target country to maximize the impact of a series of activities in the project. Cambodia was chosen as
my name is Monica, Deputy Director General of National Employment Agency, NEA. On behalf of NEA, we really thanks to the WAPES for inviting NEA to participate and be a speaker in this World Congress. So it is my honor to present about PES in Cambodia.
Oh.
That was established in 2009 under the National Training Board, which chaired by His Excellency Dr. SamPES, Minister of Ministry of Labor and Vocational Training. NEA also became a member of World Association of Public Employment Service since 2013. NEA is considered as one-stop service to provide two main role service. The first main role is to provide employment service such as register for a job, job matching, collect and post vacancy, organize employment forum and career fair, for example. And another main role is to provide labor market information such as collecting, compiling, analyzing, producing, and disseminates information on labor markets. NEA provides these two main roles to the job seeker, employer, education, and training provider. This slide talks about the mode delivery the service. The user have option in order to access the service. First option, the user can go to the job center to meet the staff and discuss for providing the service. Currently, NEA has 14 job centers, 1 in Phnom Penh and 13 in the province. In addition to that, NEA has also 3 mobile job centers that you can see in the picture. The mobile job center is flexible and able to coverage the province that doesn't have physical job center located. The mobile job center provides the service the same as physical job center. Another option, it is online service. The user can go to use the service through the website by themselves. The user can also get the information through the Facebooks. As you know that Facebook is popular among the youth in Cambodia, that's why we use this channel for disseminating the information. The other online option is applications. The user can download the NEA job search apps that is available for the Android and iOS. So the user can download and search for jobs. There are a lot of job information available that job seekers can apply.
I have lost the connection with the slides, but Cheachanmolika from Cambodia's voice helped me while I have been disconnected with the slides. So can I ask orally to promote the presentation slides to the next? Okay, thank you very much. So here in the slides, I would like to come back to the joint project and explain about what we are practically doing in the joint project. The main focus of the joint project is self-assessment of public employment services, which is the same as the SamPES project. And the aim is for continuous and sustainable improvement of public employment service. There are 2 things for self-assessment of the joint project. The first one is the establishment of a performance assessment framework. And NEA had selected user-oriented KPIs, key performance indicators, which are designed to measure how services are provided by job centers.
Excuse me, we can't hear you.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah, put your headphones, please. It was better before.
Okay,
okay, great,
because
thank you.
Inside I'm howling, so okay. Is it possible that I
maybe try like you prefer?
All right, okay. So so the key performance in and you can come back to the former slide as well. Okay. So regarding the performance assessment framework, key performance indicators are set in 3 pillars. The first one is increase the number of service users, and the second was increase the number of staff and the capacity building. And the third one is decrease in skill mismatches. So the next slide. And another self-assessment tool is customer satisfaction survey, which is to assess best performance from users' perspective regarding 5 criteria of timeliness, accessibility, respectful treatment, reliable information, and expected outcome for customers. Yeah. So in the next slide, I would like to explain about our achievements. The next slide. And the joint project provided a research cycle of 5 steps, namely fact-finding, planning, acting, observing and reflecting, and it will get back to fact-finding. The first phase focused mainly on the first and second steps, which are green squares and orange letters, fact-finding and planning. As a fact-finding, we have had building blocks for performance assessment framework and customer satisfaction survey through workshop and study visit in Cambodia. And as a next step, we have elaborated performance assessment framework and customer satisfaction survey through online meetings. As our future activities during the second phase, we are going to do the left 3 steps of acting, observing, and reflecting. For the next slides, and for the next this slide, okay. Yes. And after the not yet, okay. After the first phase of the joint project, we have released the recommendation report, which is designed to disseminate the major findings of a series of activities undertaken by NEA in the first phase between 2019 and 2021. This recommendation report functions as a workbook that helps to take the next actions after the first phase. And this TE is the first recommendation of the 4 recommendations. TE is a technology. During the first phase, NEA used to deal with technical issues without clinical experts, so that increased the employees' burdens. So it was recommended that NEA should consider using a local platform provider which offer the appropriate communication format for the NEA team. Regarding this point, I would like to point NEA has improved greatly recently. And the next recommendation of the 4 recommendations is A, active communication. As during the first phase, there used to be more formal organizational structure consisting of a leader and task-oriented team. So it was recommended that the NEA should identify a suitable champion, an individual to take the internal lead on promoting and coordinating learning for the Cambodian context. And the next recommendation is M, which is momentum, to create a new schedule in the second phase, break down the existing project and activities, including shorter and regular ones, so that to maintain interest and momentum. The final recommendation of the 4 recommendations is C. It's conceptual understanding of organizational learning. This is a more deeper level of understanding organizational management compared to other 3 practical ones. It was recommended that the NEA should use concepts and tools of organizational learning in order to understand what is behind when they find the project does not progress very well. Thus, we have the recommendation for Team Cambodia for the second phase. So thank you. To the next slide. Thank you for your kind attention. This is the last slide from myself. I'd like to add and thank that all the colleagues, all the team members, especially NEA, are highly committed to moving forward for the continuous improvement of public employment services through this joint project. So I'd like to give the floor to our colleague Molika from Cambodia again. So could you switch to the video message?
My name is Molika, Deputy Director General of the National Employment Agency. On behalf of National Employment Agency, we really thanks to the World Association of Public Employment Service, to the Japan's Ministry of Labor, Health and Welfare, and Korea Employment Information Service for technical support under the Japan's WAPES joint projects in order to improve the performance the public employment service in Cambodia. The performance assessment framework and customer satisfaction survey will contribute to assisting NEA to improve the service delivery and also receive the feedback from the user in order to redesign the service based on the user needs. During the study visit, NEA also gained the knowledge of the service delivery model of the private recruitment agency in Cambodia. NEA also received the technical support from the experts and coordinators of the projects, which greatly helped NEA to select the KPI and to prepare the customer survey feedbacks and also to prepare for the recommendation report. For the Japan WAPES joint projects phase 2, NEA will have an effort to implement the projects and has some expectation as following. NEA expect to implement the performance assessment framework and the customer satisfaction surveys. NEA staff would gain the knowledge through the capacity building and build learning partnership amongst the WAPES members to improve the public employment service in Cambodia. Finally, NEA will have a better connection and collaboration with the stakeholder in order to improve the public employment service in Cambodia. And thank you for your attention.
Nous avons entendu l'ensemble des interventions.
Now we have seen all the presentations, but we have about 10 minutes left for questions if you have any. And you can ask the presenters any questions, or perhaps you have some remarks or comments. Anyone in the audience? Would you like the floor? Thank you very much. Thank you to all members of the panel. I wanted to thank Mrs. Dobiol, who told us about SamPES, and I would like to add that we also benefited from the project. I was the liaison or the contact person in our PES for the project. We did face many challenges, obviously COVID-19, but second, also the fact that the project that the project was time restricted. It was a chase against time because the funding depended on the deadlines and the times. We had to meet physically, but it wasn't allowed due to COVID, and we we knew that we were racing against time and were about to lose. A lot of work had been done, webinars had been organized, action plans were developed. We also had consultants who helped us throughout the process. Now, my suggestion would be that we know that it's a very important project for the public employment services. And I think that this project is at the heart of the WAPES mission, because this is the idea for our organization, our objective. Yesterday we heard that WAPES has enough financial resources, and I call upon the president and the new managing board of the organization to continue with the SamPES project. It's a core project for us. Many public employment services have already benefited from it, and it will be the same in the future, because self-assessment is very important in order to improve our KPIs. And I also welcome personally Mr. Maximilian, who helped me a lot throughout this short period while we conducted or implemented the project. And I believe that all public employment services appreciate the project a lot. It was a brilliant project. Now, UMatch is over, but we still, as we heard, we have plenty of resources in order to extend the project. So, best of luck with that.
Est-ce qu'il y a une autre question?
Do we have any other questions from the audience?
Oui, devant.
Merci beaucoup. D'abord, je tiens à féliciter.
Thank you very much.
La qualité, la richesse surtout
First,
des informations.
let me congratulate our speakers. Your presentations were excellent. And now I turn to the colleague from the PES network. So, Benchlearning, SamPES project, that focus is on the European countries. How can we link these two? During Benchlearning, you can cover various areas, but maybe it would be an obstacle, maybe it would hold us back in implementing the project. Would it be possible instead to cover all these aspects by public employment services? And one more thing. My colleague from Mauritania asked about SamPES, and the initial idea for the African SamPES was that the countries in the African region could adopt this methodology. Then UMatch followed. It was the practical expression of the same thing, more or less. And I believe that more projects would follow that we would fund from our own resources. And it is directly linked to our strategic plan. Hilde, please.
Thank you, and I will also thank you for the opportunity to attend this very interesting panel today, and to hear also about the other project, the SamPES, and the joint project in Asia. And as already have been mentioned today, public employment services across one region and even more across the different different parts of or other parts of the world are very different, but we also have some common features. And also, as was mentioned about SamPES, some of the sections are quite similar in the 7 sections in SamPES and the 8 section in the bench learning model. So I think, in my view, a good way forward is to exchange, as also already was mentioned in the presentation of SamPES. We have experience to exchange. We can learn from each other. From my point of view, I have found very interesting to hear what the other projects are doing with the self-assessment, and I'm sure that you have also things you wanted to look further into the approach of the PES network. So I would appreciate that we exchange further, and in this way I'm sure we also can focus on the elements that are most useful for our members. As also have been mentioned several times today, it's not about one size fits all. We also see that inside the PES network, and so it's in the end maybe not a very concrete answer, but still what I think can be a fruitful way forward, that we stay in contact, we exchange, and we try to build and draw on the elements that are most useful within our concepts. Thank you.
Merci beaucoup, Hilde, pour cette réponse.
Thank you, Hilde.
Je regarde
Thank you very much. It was a very good answer. I have less than a minute left, but Florence, please.
Donc, en tant que heureux bénéficiaire du Benchlearning européen, je voudrais peut-être aussi rassurer les
Well, I have benefited from the European Bench Learning project, and what I wanted to share with my colleagues was that the time is very important. We have enough time to prepare ourselves, to learn and start implementing. The European cycle is very suitable for that. It's not a 6-month project. So time is really of the essence, and you must allow time for making the change happen too. About recommendations. The recommendations are the same for all organizations who want to implement change. So we shouldn't really compete one country against the other. This is not the idea. Each country moves at their own pace. They implement the changes according to their own schedule. So the PES, employers, employees, they all benefit from a successful project, not from a project that is done hastily.
Un dernier commentaire ou une dernière question.
Excusez ma curiosité, il y a tellement de richesses.
Another remark.
Il serait peut-être adressé à notre...
There's so much fascinating information here. And I had another question. You said that it's very important to find a balance, so coherence or sustainability and flexibility, so continuity and flexibility. We also talk about flexible security, but
de service, d'autres modes de travail
should we not find some other ways, some other methods that would take into consideration the flexibility, continuity, but also other relevant aspects? Every PES found their own balance, depending on their culture, depending on their economy at a given time. So everybody would find a place in the bigger picture, because the context, the big picture, is not stable. It keeps changing. Thank you. Thank you. It's time to finish now our roundtable. I think we all realize that it's important to work together, to learn from one another, so that we could move forward together. There are various approaches, but the end goal is the same for all of us. We want to serve job seekers and employers in a better way. We want to be enablers, we want to solve problems and provide answers, solutions. I thank all four presenters and Mr. Kopf. And I also thank WAPES for organizing everything, and I also thank the technical team and the interpreters, and many, many thanks to all of you in the audience. You made it an active event. Thanks.
Well, the first day of the conference has gone by so quickly, and I have to say that the day is coming to an end. But before we finish the day, I would like to give you an insight into what is awaiting ahead us tomorrow. And for this, let us once again take a small trip around the world and see what or how the work of public employment services has changed during the last 2 years.
As we all have had, we also at the PES in Sweden have had challenges during the COVID pandemic, of course. This has led us to do a lot of digitalization in our daily work, especially within international affairs. International affairs has been going through a journey of development during this whole pandemic, and we can now proudly say that most of our colleagues, or all of our colleagues, are educated and well known within the digital world, and we are easily connecting with other colleagues in the world through the digital tools that we have, which has also led us to have less climate impact with our daily work due to we don't travel as much, especially not by plane, but we also feel that this gives us a sustainability within our operations. We see a future where we can more easily blend both digital tools and digital operations with traveling, for instance.
The foreseeable future could be in Spain to continue with the temporary employment regulation. And that means more collective measures as reduced working time or temporary layoff proceeding. Here's has been during the pandemic. This is the present strategy, and for the following years, I think it will continue this way in order to keep the jobs.
Bonjour, je m'appelle Guylaine Bilodeau. Je suis directrice au ministère du Travail, de l'Emploi et de la Solidarité sociale pour les services publics d'emploi du Québec au Canada.
I'm from Canada, Quebec province.
Notre personnel a dû faire preuve d'une grande résilience et de s'adapter rapidement à un nouveau contexte.
Our staff had to adapt quickly to the new context. Among other things, they had to be flexible.
Donc, de passer d'un mode de
we adapted to virtual meetings, so from face-to-face meetings to web-based meetings. Now, written communication and communication skills have become more important. We communicate with our clients in writing more than before.
So, I would like to thank everybody who contributed making these videos, and also big thanks to all the performers today. And also, last but not least, we are really grateful for the wonderful job that all the translators have done during this really, really long day. So, dear participants online, I wish you a really nice evening or day, depending where you are across the world. We will meet you again tomorrow. But those of you who are here in Tallinn, you will have the great gala dinner and get acquainted with Estonian cuisine and also culture. And it will be held at 7:30 in the brand new Tallinn Cruise Terminal. And I know that those of you who are staying at Swiss Hotel, the buses will take you to the cruise terminal, and when you are staying in the Tallinn Hotel, you can go there by walking, and our staff members will meet you in the lobby at 7:15. But there is one more important step to take. We want to make a big WAPES family photo. So would you please all come to the stage so our photograph can make a really great picture of you guys. But see you tomorrow.